Hello again, I am Blunty, and over the weekend I started a new live-streamed playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077, and as viewers floated into those streams over the last 3 days, one question kept popping up. Can you guess what it is? It's probably the one in the title of this video. Is the game worth playing yet? A question I got from both people who purchased it at its infamously catastrophic launch and decided, like many, it was so unpleasantly, unplayably broken they stopped even trying to play it back then. But also it's a question I got from people who, in hindsight, very, very wisely decided to wait and didn't splash down any cash on launch day, or perhaps even more embarrassingly, pre-order. It's a question I've talked about in videos twice already in the past, but with the latest patch from last week and the impending massive expansion DLC, Cyberpunk 2077 Liberty Phantom, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, and keep an ear out because I'm probably going to say Liberty Phantom a few times in this video because for some reason, anytime I go to say it, all my brain wants to do is say Liberty City. Gamer problems. Phantom Liberty. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Just transpose that whenever I get it wrong in the rest of the video, please. In any case, Cyberpunk 2077 Liberty Phantom is said to be the one and the only expansion pack this game ever gets, and the fact that the base game is on sale right now for 50% off on Steam, GOG, Xbox, and PlayStation storefronts, it's time to answer that question again. Is Cyberpunk 2077 worth playing yet? At half price and with a massive DLC on the way. My new live stream playthrough will be my third full playthrough since launch and after I don't even know how many hours of just genuinely dicking around in the game. My own first playthrough was indeed at launch, and it was relatively issue-free, comparatively speaking I suppose, because I was on PC, the least problematic of the launch platforms. Sure, I still had plenty of glitches and bugs and just plain broken crap and more than a couple of flat crashes, which, for the record, I had 3 or 4 just hard crashes just over the weekend's live stream, so that's not an issue that's been fixed yet. But for the most part, it was at least playable. Mostly, all the broken stuff did was pretty severely mess up any chance I had at decent immersion, because it just kept getting in the way of the game and being distracting and annoying and disappointing and flat out just not good enough. But I did complete that first playthrough and very much enjoyed the journey, as a matter of fact, because say what you will about the game's functional condition at launch, the world they built, the stories inside it, the characters were all amazing and engaging and wonderful, which only made it even more disappointing that the game was so mechanically broken to get in the way of all that. And it was so much worse for my console playing pals. We need not break apart the whole story of the launch here. At this point, Cyberpunk has joined the likes of Fallout 76 and No Man's Sky in games of such infamously lousy launches, few gamers don't know the story. On the 15th of February 2022, however, came patch 1.5, the so-called next-gen patch, which after 433 days since launch and 15 previous patches still had massive multi-page long lists of bugs and fixes going on, which actually weren't called fixes at all in the wording. It was improvements and reductions in issues, not actually fixing those issues. But it did bring performance and basic ray tracing modes to the next generation consoles, now current generation. They put the game on sale at half price and even gave PlayStation Plus subscribers a 5-hour-long trial in an effort to win back some faith from players. But patch 1.5 was still unworthy in my eyes, at least, because when I tested it back then and attempted to answer the question, is it worth playing yet? My answer was no. It was still too broken in too many stupid little ways, and a lot of those little immersion-breaking bugs were still there. It was not worth playing yet at patch 1.5. Over half a year later, in the first week of September 2022, a year and 9 months after launch day, patch 1.6 came along. Something else came along when that happened too. Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the Studio Trigger produced 10-episode anime series, and it was so fantastically superb, so warmly welcomed, so thoroughly enjoyed by so many, it brought Cyberpunk 2077 the game back into public view in a big way, and in so doing made quite a lot of people want to try the game again, or in many cases, for the first time. It caused a massive burst of active players on Steam alone, which is the only place we can reliably track such numbers. And so came the question again, Is it worth playing yet? Did patch 1.6 fix enough of it to make it worth playing? This time, in my video on that subject, my answer was yes. Yes, it is. And that's when I chose to do my second full playthrough. It was finally worthy of diving in full fat again. This was also a live stream playthrough, and my character build was even inspired by Lucy, one of the main characters in the Edgerunners anime. It was a very different character build than my original playthrough, and it made almost everything I did and every mission I played feel wonderfully fresh again, because I had to approach things in very different ways because the build was so different. That is, of course, a sign of a good RPG. If you can make builds significantly different enough, it forces you to do missions in entirely new ways. That character, by the way, wound up being immensely powerful too, and I had a legit blast using it, seriously. Being a full-fledged netrunner in this game, you just become so ridiculously powerful. It's hilarious. Cyberpunk wasn't flawless yet, of course, and it, well, simply never will be, let's be frank. Few games are flawless, of course, but this one in particular, you know, it's sitting on a game engine that even CDPR have abandoned at this point. Going forward, they're moving to a completely different game engine. Unreal Engine 5, as a matter of fact, not their in-house engine anymore. But at this point, what bugs there were still here simply weren't disruptive enough anymore, at least not to a point where they hindered my ability to fully enjoy the superb world-building characters, quests, and stories on offer. At patch 1.6, it was indeed worth playing at last. And my plan was to wait to do another full playthrough with yet a different life path and another kind of character build until we had a release date for the Phantom Liberty expansion DLC, and by that time we should have patch 1.7, which is planned to launch just before Phantom Liberty comes along. Phantom Liberty is supposedly the biggest such expansion that the developer CD Projekt Red has ever done. Let's put that in context. These are the devs who gave Witcher 3 players Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, the later of which is possibly one of the most highly praised DLC expansions I have ever seen release. So my plan was to do that third playthrough just before that launches and roll right into the DLC, but last week we got patch 1.62, a comparatively minor patch offering little in the way of new fixes or additional content or whatever, but it did add the new Overdrive path tracing, ray tracing mode, which I've already broken down in a couple of other videos last week. But in making those videos, I got the bug again. In doing the testing and recording the gameplay I needed for those path tracing related videos, I was sucked back in a big way. And so here we are. I'm a couple of dozen hours already deep into my third playthrough with a new build gimmick. If you're curious, this time I'm only using pistols, I'm in hard mode, and I'm approaching missions Hitman style, relying on stealth and one-hit kill headshots and silent takedowns. It's basically a stealth glass cannon build. I am very squidgy, but very dangerous. And I am again having great fun with it. And while we still don't have a launch date, or even so much as a launch window for Cyberpunk Liberty Phantom, except for sometime this year, CDPR having possibly learned their lesson perhaps about making promises they aren't 100% locked in on the ability to actually fulfill and deliver on. In fact, the only thing we know about the timing of it at all at this point is in June, sometime, they're planning on sharing more information, whatever that means. I am assuming it's going to at least be some gameplay previews, maybe, a new trailer, likely some soundbites and brief interviews with the big-name celebs they've got playing major roles. Keanu Reeves is returning, of course, but they're also bringing in Idris Elba, who will be playing a character named Solomon Reed, who works for the new United States as an FIA agent. Whatever the heck that is. We're guessing something like the FBI or CIA blended together. Spy guy, basically. Because Phantom Liberty, thematically, is set to be a spy thriller, which is pretty exciting. As, well, it's not my very favorite genre of all times when it comes to like TV and movies or whatever. The existing stories in base game Cyberpunk 2077 that kind of fall into this category are some of the most intriguing and fun quests. So we already know they can do a pretty good job at this kind of storytelling. But a Phantom Liberty release date could still be weeks or months away from that June more information announcement, so I'll guess I'll just do a fourth playthrough. There's still a lot of different ways to build a character I want to try out after all. But to answer the question, is it worth playing yet? Well, the answer was yes in September, and it's still yes now, except it's more yes now, because the DLC looms, and it's half price right now on all the platforms you can buy it on. So there's no better time to finally give the game a go, and with luck, you'll enjoy it as much as I do, or at the very least, you'll be able to judge whether or not you want to keep an eye on Liberty Phantom news, and start thinking about whether or not you want to invest in that DLC. And if you are a returning player burned at launch, yes, it's safe to come back now, especially on PC, where the modding scene is still pretty active to this day and has some great quality of life stuff available, some fun visual mods. Of course, you've got the usual sexy stuff as well if you're into that. And recently, modders have even figured out how to add in whole new original quest lines into the game. So now there's even more content for you, even before the DLC comes along. On console, if you're still chugging along on last-gen hardware like the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One X or S, I'd probably advise a little more caution. I hear it's better now, but better doesn't mean good. Also, the new DLC isn't even launching on last-gen consoles. They've abandoned those platforms as just not good enough for this game, which it never has been. Patch 1.6 was in fact the last update planned for those last-gen consoles. It is effectively abandoned now. It is what it is today, and it is what it is forevermore. If you're on the Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5, however, you should be pretty good. Visual presentation and performance modes are both pretty solid these days, and the DLC will of course be coming to those platforms. So, here we are, knee-deep in 2023, a long walk from 2020's catastrophic launch, and I'm starting to feel like CD Projekt Red might be on the verge of earning back some of my faith, or at the very least, I'll give them a little benefit of the doubt when it comes to the DLC. In my mind, it is still very much show, don't tell when it comes to this particular developer, because, well, they burned us all pretty bad at launch, and once you break trust, it's a lot harder to earn it back. But, like Hello Games and No Man's Sky before them, they have put in the work. They didn't just walk away from a failure. They didn't just go, well, fuck that up. We'll just move on. They kept trying. They kept patching it. They kept working at it. And that earns you something, in my mind. Now, I don't think they've yet accomplished the pretty full redemption arc that No Man's Sky has achieved, because that game is massively different to what it launched at, and there's so much more content they keep adding to it for free. Hello Games have done an amazing job redeeming themselves and No Man's Sky. And on that note, is No Man's Sky worth playing yet? Yes, it is. It totally is. You should definitely give it a go if that's the style of game you're into. It's so good now. But CD Projekt Red have at least done a far better job at rescuing Cyberpunk 2077 than, say, Bethesda did in their flailing ineptitude lurched at making Fallout 76 not be a garbage fire of embarrassing proportions. Which, while mechanically it's a lot better these days, it's gotten worse in a lot of other ways, including microtransaction bullshittery. Let's hope for better luck on the Fallout and Space game that's coming along. Anyway, thanks for watching. I am Blunty. I'll catch you next time. Hopefully I'll see you on more Cyberpunk streams in the coming weekend. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to upload the replays of this stream to the secondary youtube.com/bluntnate YouTube channel. But, you know, throw a sub over there just in case I start throwing it up there, and you can use that to watch them or indeed catch up or rewatch them. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Thank you again to the patrons scrolling on by. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.